welcome back and welcome to some library book reviews. I've done a few of these where I've reviewed lots of books together in one video rather than doing separate and in detail videos, and recently for sort of bouts of books in the last couple of weeks I've been trying to read through the library books that I have so that I can take them back to the library before I leave the country, because they wouldn't be very happy if I left the country with them. So I thought, let's do some reviews of the library books that I have. As always, I will put the timings for each book in the description box so that if you're interested in my thoughts on one book in particular, you can skip to that section. Give this video a thumbs up if you like this style of reviewing, or let me know in the comments if you would prefer me to do detailed reviews on each of the books that I read. If you are looking for more detailed reviews, I always review the books that I read on my blog, and that link is always in the description box below. And to keep up with what I'm reading, as always, I talk about it on all the social medias, and all the links to those are in the box below as well. So let's get started. So first of all, I'm going to talk about One of Us is Lying by Karen McManus. This one obviously has been around so much recently. So many people have been talking about it, and I was on the wait list for it in the library, and then it became available, so I was like, yes, and I ended up reading most of this in one sitting and finishing off the rest of it very late at night. So I read it over the course of one day, basically. And this book surrounds, I'll just give you the very short blurb at the front of this one. Basically, on Monday afternoon, 5 students at Bayview High walk into detention. Only one of them never makes it out of that classroom. Before the end of detention, Simon's dead. And according to investigators, his death wasn't an accident. And so basically, this book surrounds the remaining 4 characters and which of them is to blame for his death, if any. This book, the characters in this book felt very realistic and very relatable. I could definitely see most of these characters being at an actual high school or being at high school with me, and it also surrounds some serious issues that teenagers today have to face. This book would have some sort of trigger warnings, because the things that Simon is interested in include some sort of violent things, and so you need to sort of look carefully at this book if you are triggered by gun violence and things like that. But overall, I think it was, I think the thing that stuck out for me with this one was that it was realistic. A lot of people talk about like twists in the book and things like that, but it's predictable that this kind of book would have twists, so there's no point in me talking about that. The thing for me that really stuck out was how realistic it was and how this kind of thing could have happened. Also, the way that Simon died is a way that school students often die, and so that's definitely the thing that really kind of stuck with me for this book. Some parts of this were a little on the slow side. I think in particular we've got Addie, who is like the prom queen. I wasn't as keen on her storyline, and Cooper, who's the jock, his storyline was quite predictable, but you kind of start off not necessarily liking him and then end up liking him. So yeah, I would really recommend this book. It's definitely, as I say, very realistic and a real page turner, and obviously it's got a bit of mystery in there, it's got a bit of a thriller aspect, and yeah, definitely a good read. And then we move on to What to Say Next by Julie Buxbaum. This one is definitely kind of contemporary YA romance, and we've got if I just read you about the these two characters here that are involved in this book. So it says, let me see here, let's get this so you can see it too. Kit, I don't know why I decide not to sit with Annie and Violet at lunch. It feels like no one here gets what I'm going through. How could they? They don't understand it. And then other character, David. In the 622 days I've attended Mapleview High, Kit Lovell is the first person to sit at my lunch table. I mean, I've never once sat with someone until now. So your dad is dead, I say to Kit, because this is a fact that I've recently learned about her. So we've got David, who has Asperger's, and Kit, who we find out has recently lost her dad, and their friendship and what happens between them. And I'm sure you can imagine the kind of things that David might do and say that kind of gets it wrong in this book, and the kind of attitude that Kit has to her studies and to her friendship. And this was just a really sweet, cute read. I read this one because I read Tell Me Three Things by the same author, which I absolutely loved. And I'm gutted because she's coming to a signing in Denver whilst I'm not here, and I'm just like, so annoying. I absolutely love that book, and then I picked this up, and I mean the cover, look at the cover, it's so beautiful. And so yeah, it's another really sweet read, but it shows the characters growing and developing over the course of the book. And this isn't, not giving anything away by saying this isn't insta love. This isn't something that you're going to be like, oh, you know, fine, they've got it together or whatever. It's so much more kind of like delicate and complicated than that, and it really is a book about friendship rather than a book about like relationships. And again, I could really see these characters being characters in high school that I went to, and I could see these characters being, you know, friends, and, you know, changing their friendship group. The back says, it's true, opposites attract. The attraction part is easy. It just happens. The tricky part is figuring out what to say next. So again, that confirms the whole it's not insta love thing. And this was just a really sweet read. So if you are looking for something really sweet and cute about friendship and high school friendship, then this one is definitely one for you. Then we have The Happily Ever After Stories by Kiera Cass. I made a whole video about the selection series. I believe I talked about all 5 books, so I will link that up the top here somewhere, so you can look out for that one. And I knew that I wanted to read Happily Ever After. I ended up reading it during another readathon, like I read the selection series, and these are the novellas that go with the first 3 books in the selection series, plus some other bonus material. And it was the kind of other bonus material that kind of made me pick this one up rather than just downloading the novellas. The novellas are The Queen, The Prince, The Guard, and The Favourite, and I absolutely loved reading The Queen. That was definitely my favourite. That one I think I gave 5 stars on Goodreads too, because I enjoyed that one so much. But it was just really nice being back in this world. Obviously you definitely have to have read the selection series, the first 3 books in the selection series, which I would recommend that you do anyway, to enjoy this one. But the other aspect of this book that I really liked was the illustrations in it. So first of all, you've got this beautiful map at the front there. And thank you to the library for making that flap lift upable, because I wouldn't have wanted to miss out on that one. And then you've got some really lovely illustrations throughout the novellas as well, which you don't often get. Like, there is a picture of Maxon and America, which was very exciting. And then it also has a Where Are They Now section at the end. So like when you've got an actual reality TV show and they kind of revisit and go back to Where Are They Now, it has a Where Are They Now section. So if you have read the selection series, then definitely give this one a go, because there's the bonus material in here you will love. If you haven't read the selection series, read the first 3 books and maybe slot these in as you're reading along, because you should read The Queen and The Prince after you've read the selection, and then you should read the Guard and The Favourite after you've read the Elite, and then there is an epilogue to the one which you can read after you've read the one. So that's very exciting. Really enjoyed this book. As I say, Queen was my favourite. The Guard was probably my least favourite. I found myself skimming some parts of that because I just didn't like Aspen as a character, and even this novella didn't make me like him even more, even though the beginnings that Kira Cass sort of says, oh, I wrote this because a lot of people didn't like Aspen, he's a bit misunderstood, so hopefully, you know, you'll get to know him a bit more through this. And I was like, nah, still not a fan. Still really not a fan. And then let's move on to something a bit darker. So you've got options here. I read Because You Love to Hate Me, which is a selection, 13 Tales of Villainy, by 13 different YA authors and 13 different booktubers and book bloggers. So it says, leave it to the heroes to save the world. Villains just want to rule the world. And I read this, a couple of stories each day, and kind of spread it out. I kind of had a mixed relationship with this book. Obviously some of the stories are very sort of fantasy based, and that's just not my jam. I did try with all of them, but the ones that, yeah, were kind of fantasy based just weren't me, and so I sort of ended up skipping those. But I read what the booktubers had to say, and the challenges they'd given to the authors to write the stories. I really loved Andrew Smith's story. I have to look back at it now. Also, how pretty is that title page? It's just beautiful. I love the black rose, very, very nice. Andrew Smith's story and Nicola Yoon's story, which are Julian Breaks Every Rule by Andrew Smith and Sarah by Nicola Yoon. I also really loved Gwen and Art and Lance. Let me see if I can find it. So Gwen and Art and Lance is obviously Guinevere, Arthur and Lancelot, and it's these kind of text or email conversations, I think they were emails, between them, and kind of illustrating a kind of love triangle thing going on, and I just loved the format of that story. And then Andrew Smith's story was very much a kind of contemporary story with somebody who has kind of evil thoughts, and then people kind of act on them. And Nicola Yoon's was quite similar, so that's probably why I liked those. So those three were definitely my favourite. As I say, I couldn't get on with some of the more fantasy ones, but I did try, and I think this is definitely an interesting selection. And if you're looking for a new series of short stories to read or something to dip in and out of, then definitely pick this one up, because you'll definitely find something in there that you like. Even for people like me who don't like kind of fantasy or like dystopian anything really, then there was stuff for me in here. So yeah, I did enjoy this book, and it was a very different way of reading, which was good. Then, which one should I talk about next? Let's go back to some contemporary romance. We've got Love and Gelato, and if you are thinking that this book will probably make you want to eat gelato, you'll be absolutely correct. It will also make you want to eat pizza, pasta, pastries and espresso. So I'm quite lucky that I read this one in quite a quick read, because I think if I'd made it last any longer, I would have ended up just eating constantly. So this one, Lena is spending the summer in Tuscany, but she isn't in the mood for Italy's famous sunshine and fairy tale landscape. She's only there because it was her mother's dying wish that she get to know her father. But what kind of father isn't around for 16 years? And all Lena wants to do is to go back home. But then she's given a journal that her mom had kept when she lived in Italy, and then the whole book surrounds her kind of reading through her mom's journal, because there are extracts from the journal, and finding out more about her and more about her father, and more about her mum's kind of past friendships and relationships. And obviously she meets a boy or two along the way, and yeah, I liked Lena as a character because she wasn't a pushover. She was quite a difficult character, and she kind of didn't get on with everybody straight away, and she knew her own mind, and she was quite independent, and I really liked that about her. Her stubbornness made me a little bit annoyed with her at some points, but you know, that's bound to happen because she's a teenager who's just lost her mum, so you know, these things happen. But the storyline, it's the structure of this one that I really, really loved. The structure of it with the things Lena's doing and then things she finds out about her mom, and some of the things she does and ends up doing are actually really brave, and I really respected her for that. It was kind of a little bit of a mystery in a way, because some of the things that she finds out about her mother and her mother's past relationships are actually kind of red herrings and dead ends, but other things open up a whole Pandora's box of things. So yeah, I think it was the structure of this one that really stuck with me, and obviously the Italian landscape and the Italian food. It reminded me a little bit of Anna and the French Kiss, just in that whole new country, new school, new friends kind of way, but with a much more kind of independent, feisty heroine of a lead. Then on to a little bit of non-fiction, just to mix it up a bit for you, and that is A New Model by Ashley Graham. Now, I had obviously heard of Ashley Graham, otherwise I wouldn't have picked up this book. I've heard of her because of her swimsuit line for Swimsuits for All, and obviously the fact that she is a very famous plus-size model. And so I wanted to read this because I wanted to sort of get to know a little bit more about her. And I decided to go for once for the physical book so that I could get the pictures, because I always go for memoirs on audiobook so I can hear the author talking about them, but I really wanted to see the pictures in this one because I was like, well, she's a model, so it would be only right to see the pictures. And there are some pictures of her sort of doing some modelling and things like that as well. Yeah, and again, I really enjoyed the structure of this book. It's broken down into sections, and each section has a sort of heading of what that section's going to be about. So it doesn't necessarily follow chronologically, so you could dip in and out of each section. So you've got Put the Snickers Down, How to Slay Your Style, Turning the Competition into Community. And the subheading of the book is What Confidence, Beauty and Power Really Looks Like. And this really isn't just a book about her being a model. It is about self-confidence. It is about that community section really rang with me. It's about, you know, girls sticking together and people in the industry you're working in, or in your educational setting, sticking together rather than being out to get each other, because society already puts enough pressure on us to be in competition with each other. If we stick together, it's definitely a better way of being, and that was a really strong message that came through here. Another strong message that came through was about self-confidence and knowing your own mind and making your own decisions and owning those decisions. The fact that yes, you are going to make mistakes, and you know, you are going to spend your money unwisely, you are going to make the wrong decision when it comes to relationships or life choices, but it's owning those decisions and then moving on from them. And that's what I really took from this one, and I read this one in one sitting, so it's definitely is less than 200 pages, but it was definitely an enjoyable read. And as I say, the sections are such that you could dip in and out of them, and you could go back and reread certain sections if you're wanting a little self-confidence boost. And obviously, you know, the fact that she's in the plus size industry and she's designed lingerie for Lane Bryant and swimsuits for Swimsuits for All, and she's got, you know, deals with other designers that I recognise, was a bonus as well. But yeah, I definitely recommend this one. It's more than just what it looks like it is on the cover. Definitely, it's got hidden depths. And finally, we have Zenn Diagram, which you'll have seen me kind of gushing over on social media as I was reading it. Let me tell you about this one. Math genius, freak of nature, loner. Eva Walker has literally one friend, if you don't count her quadruplet 3-year-old siblings. Let me tell you about those siblings. They provide such comedy value in this book, but they also provide a kind of link forever with the real world, and a link between her and her parents as well. I loved the fact that this book featured these quadruplets. I think it's probably the first time that I've seen that featured in a book, and I really enjoyed that aspect of it. And it's not even because she's a math nerd. Woo for maths nerds. That is the reason that I picked this book up, because it had a Venn diagram on the front of it. No, Eva is a loner out of necessity because everyone and everything around her is an emotional minefield. All she has to do is touch someone or their shirt or their cell phone and she can read all their secrets, their insecurities and their fears. So there is a little aspect of suspending your disbelief in this book, but it's not shoved down your throat. It's not that. It's a kind of fantasy aspect of it. It's very much like she has this thing, she gets on with it, it affects her life, but actually she can use it to better her life as well. Sure, Eva's gift comes in handy when she's tutoring maths. Can't say math. And she can learn where people are struggling just by touching their calculators. That is a very cool gift. As a teacher, I would love that. For the most part, though, it's safer to keep her hands to herself until she meets 6'3", cute without trying, Zenn Bennett, who makes that nearly impossible. Zenn's jacket gives Eva such a dark and violent vision that you'd think not touching him would be easy, but sometimes you have to take risks. So you can see there is going to be a little bit of romance in this one, but I don't know if you can see on the cover here we've got lots of like maths equations and things like that, which is definitely what drew me to the book. The fact that she is a girl who is good at maths and, you know, uses it to help her because she tutors, and she used that money to help her family, and she used that money to, you know, do things with her life. This book also concerns kind of college applications and the financial implications of college, which I don't think a lot of young adult books talk about. I've said before, I love books that deal with that time between high school and going off to university, but none of them really talk about how expensive that is and how finding that money can be a major issue and can stop people from going to university or going to college. And I love the fact that this book dealt with that. I loved Eva as a character. I loved her relationship with her family. Obviously, I've already mentioned the quadruplets. They were fantastic. But she's got a lovely relationship with her mum and dad as well. And her dad is a pastor, and, you know, we kind of know that her mum isn't necessarily that religious, but we see her in scenes kind of reading the Bible or doing things for the church community. And then Zenn is a bit of a kind of, not quite a bad boy, but he's from the wrong side of the tracks. And there's an aspect where you think at first that these two don't have very much in common, but then all of a sudden you realise that their Venn diagram does connect, and there's again, not kind of giving anything away, there is a bit of a twist there. And I loved the parallel with the Zenn diagram, because the guy's called Zenn, and the Venn diagram, when they find out they've got this bit of a connection. I really loved this one. I highly recommend this one. This is this book will make you think, but it's such an enjoyable read, and their friendship and Eva's development over the course of the book is really fun to read and will make you feel warm and fuzzy. But as I say, it does deal with the financial implications of what it's like to be applying to college and to be going to university, which I really respected, and I just, yeah, can't recommend this book enough. This was definitely my favourite out of the pile. Definitely. I know I've talked, I was really lucky that most of these I absolutely loved, but this one was my favourite. I'm going to say it. I'm calling it favourite. Okay, so there you have it. Some library book reviews for you before they all have to go back to the library. I'm going to miss my library so much. But, you know, I will go to the library back in England and see if there are any books in there that I want to read. And yes, So, as I say, if you have made it this far and you enjoyed this format, then give me a thumbs up, or if you would like to see any of these books or books in the future talked about in more detail, then let me know in the comments below. Make sure you are subscribed because I've got some exciting videos coming up soon. And yes, thank you very much for watching. I will see you in my next video. Bye.